I want you to go on this journey with me real quick. Back in the early 80s, I was a little kid in the 80s. Started cutting hair at 12 years old. And I knew my mom was a stylist, and she wanted us to kind of follow her footsteps, but we were kind of fighting that thing. We wanted to be businessmen. And I didn't really appreciate the whole barbering business because I grew up in it. But it was this one guy, man, he had started this business, and I knew right then and there I could do anything that I wanted to do. I'm talking about maybe 12, 13 years old, and this I think the first video was Prince. And it was on BET. And they said a black man owned it. And his name was Bob Johnson. And from that day on, I always knew that I could achieve anything just because of that person and the image of what he represented at that time in my life. So moving from that place to now and having an opportunity to meet Mr. Bob Johnson was somewhat of a surreal opportunity. It was kind of different, you know. I had an opportunity to meet him through Carrie Mitchell, the first CIAA. When it came here, Carrie Mitchell invited me to a function that Mr. Johnson was having at his apartment, and I got a chance to, you know, shake his hand, and you know, he kept it going. There was a lot of people in there, you know. It kept it going. I didn't get a chance to say much to him. It was like a handshake and keep it moving. I was like, okay, that was cool. So, you know, they get, you know, then they mingling, and a lot of people talking. A couple of speeches were made, and it was another guy in there. I can't think of his name, but he gets his hair cut at my barbershop. And he reintroduced me to Mr. Johnson. He said, yeah, this is a good guy, man. He got a couple of shops in the city. And again, you know, Mr. Johnson, quick, you know, shook my hand, kept it moving. I was like, okay, cool. But it was one more time. Carrie Mitchell, him and Mr. Johnson had to talk something. It was the third time I got a chance to meet Mr. Johnson. And Carrie Mitchell, he gave the right pitch. He said, man, get your hair cut by him. I get my hair cut by him. And I don't know, this time it just clicked. I don't know if he needed a haircut, what he needed at that time. But it clicked. He said, oh, you cut hair? I said, yeah. He said, make sure I get your number, and, you know, I'm going to come check you out. I said, okay, cool. I got the number. And one thing I learned, folks, never give men like that or women like that your card. I was trying to find his assistant. Wherever his assistant was, I made sure I gave that person the card. So believe it or not, a few months later, I got a phone call from his assistant saying, Mr. Johnson needs a haircut. I'm blown away. Now I'm like, what? This man need a haircut? I said, okay, I'll be right over. He said, no, he gonna come to you. I said, coming where? To the shop? Now, mind you, the first shop he came to was on Central Avenue. It ain't uptown, it's Central Avenue. And I said, you sure? He said, yeah, he gonna come to Central. I said, okay, cool. So I'm pumped, man. So Mr. Johnson came and got his haircut, and we just talked. We had a conversation from client to barber, or man to man, businessman to businessman, and it was such a relief that it was just a regular conversation. And I said, wow, this was cool. And, you know, didn't know if I was gonna ever meet him again or see him again. I just said, you know, I got a chance to cut someone I've always admired, got to cut his hair. And then he called me again, got another haircut. And it's been about 5 years I've been cutting this man's hair. But the moral of the story is, I mean, I don't know how people are making this business thing so complicated, because it's really not that complicated. If you have an ideal, you have a dream, you believe in it, and then you just be prepared for opportunities. So for years, for over 25 years, Mr. Johnson has been significant in urban businesses for over 25 years. Like him or love him or hate him, regardless, he has been significant in the United States, the American business, the American dream for over 25 years. And just talking to him as a client, talking to him as a man, he doesn't make it really complicated. I've asked him questions. I've asked really every person in here, from Mr. Mayfield to Bishop, and these guys get their haircuts. And we have simple conversations. And I was amazed that some of these guys had never met each other. And I'm like, man, I get to meet all y'all, but y'all have never met each other. I said, this is a problem. These guys don't meet each other. They ain't talking. I'm getting all this information. Somehow we got to bring this thing together. So that's how the Urban Business Network came to existence. And for these people to be here, I just want to say thank you. More so, I want to honor Mr. Bob Johnson for such a tremendous job he's done over 25 years. You know, I don't need no paper because I come from the heart. And what he's done, even what happened Thursday was amazing. Some of y'all probably didn't even catch it. It was the transferring of one black man to another. America has never seen it before. Love him or hate him, man, he has been doing some great things for over 25 years. I just want to say thank you, and we're going to honor you with the award. I get to talk to him all the time, so he's going to give y'all a treat. He's going to talk to you, but we're doing a double dose here. We're going to give him a honor right here. Just thanking you for what you've done for over 25 years, and we just hope and pray that you continue to do everything else that's in your mind and in your heart to do, man. This much love over here, man. I cut your head. I'm behind you, so I got your back, baby. So we good. Mr. Bob Johnson. That's right. Give him some love.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. As you can see from Damien, as I told people in the green room before, it's hard not to talk to a guy standing behind your back with a razor blade. So Damien and Jermaine both, to me, they are an inspiration, clearly. The fact that their name is Johnson also helps. But when I got to talking to these young men about what they were doing and their vision and their focus on quality. I mean, the one thing, when I walked into that barbershop, I don't care whether it was on Central Avenue or the new one down here in the, I saw young men who were working, very committed to what they were doing, very well trained, disciplined, qualified, clean, neat, customer service-oriented barbershop. Everyone I went into, I got that same impression. And when they told me they wanted to open up one in the Bobcats Arena, and they described what they were trying to do, this was not going to be a barbershop. This was going to be a men's connection center, a haberdashery, a place where a gentleman would go to, a gentleman's club without the kind of stuff they talk about in a gentleman's club. But it was going to be a place where men would sit down, because the one thing about a barbershop, and this is unique, and it's certainly unique, I think, for African Americans. Think about this. A barbershop is the only place that I know where you will get the cross-stratification of every economic, cultural group in America among black men. The wealthiest black person in the world will go to the same barbershop that the poorest black person in the world will go to. And I can't think of any other institution, perhaps maybe the church, that brings us together like that. And that's what these two young men have accomplished, and that's why we're all here. What I want to do is, as Damien told me, he said, Bob, I don't want you to give a speech. All I want you to do is take questions and answer questions from people, and maybe the answer I give you could help you in some way, or give you some ideas about what you're doing. And he's not paying me, so the answer is going to be what it's worth. So.
Mr. Johnson, how do you go about connecting the dots with all levels of businesses, small businesses, big businesses, traditional corporate business, urban business? How do you envision, how do we connect the dots? Because, we just all come from all walks of life, all experiences. How do you envision connecting these dots?
Yeah. I think you said it earlier. The fundamental connection to doing business is basically relationships. People really, if you really think about it, people want to do business with people they like. I mean, every now and then you'll do a deal with the devil, but you don't really like the devil, but you do it sometime. But you'd really much rather do business with somebody you like, somebody who shares your values, somebody who you know is committed to the same objectives you are, somebody who's willing to work as hard as you are. And when you find those are the people you want to bring under your tent to be part of your business objective. And you've got to do that by, sort of presenting yourself in a way that people clearly understand that you are committed to creating value. Business people want to create value. It doesn't mean they don't want to have fun, doesn't mean that they don't want to be involved in other kinds of things, but if you can go to someone and convince them that I can help you create value, and by your ability to articulate that and to communicate it, and to give people the impression that you will work as hard as they will to create that value, you're going to find people wanting to come to you. And so for me, it's sort of been like that throughout my whole career, is being able to say to people and talk to people in a way that convinces them that I am going to do everything I can to help make what they want to achieve a success, and by extension, I'm going to be a success. When I started BET, the guy who invested in BET is a guy named John Malone. He was at that time the operator of the third largest cable company in Denver, Colorado. And he kept investing money into BET without taking additional equity. And as BET became a big success, I ended up with about 75% of the company. He ended up with about 25% of the company. And one day I asked him, I said, John, you put over $500,000 in BET on the startup. You put it in as debt. You didn't put it in as equity, which would have given him greater ownership. I said, why'd you do it that way? And he said, Bob, I always knew you would work harder for yourself than you would for me. And it was that kind of commitment. So if you can convey to people that you're willing to work hard for them and for yourself, you've got a business partner. You're connecting the dots. And the other thing I've always said, when I got my first job at the cable industry as a lobbyist, the guy who's head of the trade association said to me one time, he said, Bob, the key to building relationship and so-called connecting the dots is make your friends before you need them. Right. And that means that first impression, that first interaction you have with somebody is sort of like a stamp of approval. And if you do that with someone and they like you, and then they in turn tell somebody else they like you, that's where the dots start coming, because somebody will say, I know Damien, good guy. So I respect the guy who told me that. So all of a sudden now, he's transferred his stamp of approval on you over to me. And that's how it happens.
If you would please share with us lessons learned while doing business in Charlotte, North Carolina.
How many of you guys from the Charlotte Observer? If anybody here work for the Charlotte Observer, y'all better leave right now. I will say my observation goes like this. Charlotte is a very, and from the standpoint of and I'll deal with the white business community. Charlotte is a very, how would I call it, close-knit, arrogant, somewhat incestuous town. I remember when I first got here and I was talking to Hugh McCall. Hugh McCall said, Bob, I'm going to go to about 10 Christmas parties. And at them 10 Christmas parties, 90% of the people I see are going to be the same people. And that's what Charlotte is. Charlotte is not even part of North Carolina if they can get away with it. Charlotte describes itself, and this is what they describe themselves, we're a city-state. I was heard from somebody say, we don't ever want to have to go to Raleigh for anything. That's the way this town is. So it's close-knit. And if you come to this town and you look like you're one of those people that will, like in emergencies, where they say break glass, you're one of those people who might break some glass, it's going to be tough to for them to relate to you. And I think it was a little bit of some of the other things related to the way that the city, the other team left, I think it was somewhat related to the fact that I was the first African American to own a team in Charlotte. I think it was a little bit of relate to just basketball getting back its hold on it. But the thing that concerns me a little bit most of all, not so much me, is that I'm just surprised that the city doesn't do more for African American small business. I don't quite understand that. I mean, there's no, I don't think there's a law in the books that says minority ownership or minority businesses. I think it's come under something called small business. You don't use the word minority. And maybe that's for legal reasons and everything else. But clearly, this town should have substantially larger small businesses. You got some very bright, talented people here. And it's a great community, family community, and it's got a lot of good positive things for it. But I am surprised at the number of people since I got here who've come to me looking for financial backing that they haven't been able to find within the business community. And I'm surprised that there aren't enough alliances or relationships between larger white businesses and minority small businesses. It just should be happening more and more. If you look at other places, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, these kind of things happen more often. And I don't know how to describe it, but I think it's just that it's not integrated enough in terms of opportunity. And I think the one thing that is probably needed is a little bit more aggressiveness on the part of the African American community to bring this out, to point out to how many people are doing business with Duke, how many people are doing business with the Bank of America, how many people are doing business with Wells Wachovia, and all the other large businesses that are here. And if you are doing it, then everybody should be saying, how did you do it, and how do we get a group of people to be a part of a roundtable? I think the next meeting, Damien, you should ask if you could get the top 10 businesses here to talk about it. I'm on the board of Lowe's. We try very hard, but we don't do as much as we should do to have a relationship with small businesses and minority businesses. And so there's a lot more that needs to be done, but I think, nobody's going to give it to you. I think you got to go out and take it a little bit.
What are some of the steps that we can take that make sure that this group of 200, we get together, we become that power force that you're talking about that goes to Lowe's or Harris Teeter or the bank and say, look, you got to pay attention to us?
Well, the first thing I would do, I mean, if there are people here in the same business, I mean, if you're running the same business as somebody else, the first thing I would do is sit down and talk about, can we merge and get the scale? That's the first thing I would do. There's no way in the world, if I were running a company, let's say I was in the security business, providing security to companies, and then there's another guy named Fred who had a security company, and another guy named, a person named Mary who had a security company. 3 security companies all vying for the contracts. I would say, why don't we merge, get the scale, reduce our overhead costs, and go out and become the preeminent security firm in the city of Charlotte. There's no way in the world I would be competing against that. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is look at businesses who can provide support to your business at a cost below what you're paying somebody else. And if you don't have the money for that, but it'll help you jumpstart your business, give them equity. Trade equity for the service provider. It happens all the time. When I started BET, I needed cable distribution. Some of the cable, Time Warner, at that time said, yeah, we'd like to be an investor, but we also want equity. We'll give you our carriage, but we want equity. And that's another way to build a relationship. Doesn't take capital, just you got to have confident, but when you provide a service, that service is going to help this business grow. Your 10% equity, whatever the trade is going to help you grow. And so you could do it that way. The other thing is you can just direct invest. if your business is doing well and you've got some extra free cash flow that's not necessary for, for hearth and home, and you say, gee, I really like the way you run your business. You need $25,000, you need $30,000, you need what it is. Or I'll tell you what I'll do. I won't put the $30,000. What I will do is put the $30,000 as collateral against a loan, because I believe you. And you go out and you borrow the money with the $30,000 collateral. If it doesn't, you don't pay it back, you convert the $30,000 into equity, and you get to the same place. And you provide support and help to that person. When I started BET, the guy John Malone I was talking about, he was my backer. So when I would go around and talk to banks and other cable companies, they'd say, who's in your deal? And I'd say, John Malone. And you can almost feel like that good housekeeping seal coming down, because say, if this guy who we respect is in your deal, then I like your deal. And that's what you can do. Some of us have more visibility in the community. Some of us have more connections, more relationship. Put your imprimatur on somebody else. Transfer your reputational attraction to another business partner. Sometimes you don't have to give any money. Sometimes you just have to say, I'm on the board of this company. I know the president of this company. I know the CFO, the head of strategic business. I'm going to call him for you and say, I like this guy. Give him a meeting so he can tell you what he's doing. That's all it is. So if we do more of that, I assure you, that, as Damien said, this is not a very difficult business. It's one where if you can focus on your business as if it's something where you say, I want to build a relationship with you, I want to create value with you, I want to help us create an opportunity for both of us. You'd be surprised how easy it is to do business. Thank you very much.